a college football coach. I've been a college offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, but I've now shifted into the youth gear since I got little kids of my own. So the only team I coach now is actually my 7-year-old's flag team, which has been a lot of fun. But the idea of talking about Cover One was a lot of fun. I'll be happy to give as a couple different prisms through which I view attacking Cover One in the air today, and there's kind of 4 avenues that I look at that I try to combine. If anyone wants more information or deeper stuff, we do have an online classroom, which you can find on our website or on our Instagram page and stuff. I think people seem to have enjoyed what's on.
Yeah, I'll put all that in the bio of this video too once we're live, so
awesome.
So they can check it out.
Sounds good. But yeah, so talking about Cover One and how we want to attack Cover One. Obviously, a lot of our easy settling completions that we like to find soft spots in zone no longer exist. That's the purpose of Cover One for a lot of defenses, to take away the automatic completions. Like Cover Three is giving you those base access throws, or Cover Two you can just pick on the will backer a little bit and just high-low him with like pivot concepts and stuff. And you have what you would consider very high percentage completions. Cover One is aiming to eliminate as much of that as possible, which means in the passing game we have to be a little bit more intentional, a little bit more deliberate. Who are we picking on? Who are we trying to create traffic for? What matchup are we looking for? It requires us to be a little bit more deliberate, but at the same time, we want to make sure we still create high percentage opportunities for quarterbacks. I see a lot of offenses, and in the past, mine included, who, when we play against man coverage teams, our completion percentage might drop from like 70 to 50. Because we're losing some of those, easy RPOs and autos and just bubbles and checkdowns and stuff like that. Stuff's not as easily available. And so as an offense, you end up behind the sticks a little bit more. So it became a very intentional, deliberate part of the game plan, which is how do we create high percentage completions as well as shot plays against Cover One. So I guess I'll dig right into it now. Normally I'm going to look at Cover One through 4 prisms, 4 kind of avenues through which we want to attack it. The first is the cheapest, and it's just matchups, okay? Now, when I talk about matchups, most people think, all right, well, I want to take my wide receiver against their best corner, right? If I've got 𝐕𝐈𝐺 Hopkins out there against the corner, I want that matchup. If I got Tyreek Hill against a linebacker, I want that matchup. That's all well and good. Take matchups. I don't like using that as a primary point in game planning, because if you feel like you don't have a matchup, like if the other team is good, I guess you're kind of hosed if that's your approach. So we want to be a little bit more creative than that. So when I hear matchups, what I'm really trying to say in a more nuanced way is formation versatility, right? Especially at the youth football level. If I take my best receiver and I line them outside all the time, I'm always going to draw their best cover guy. I'm giving myself the longest throw against their best cover guy. I'm giving myself the worst situation for my best matchup, theoretically.
Makes sense.
What I'd love to do is take my 𝐕𝐈𝐺 Hopkins, or who, my I guess I should start saying Justin Jefferson and Ja'Marr Chase. So I'm going to take my Ja'Marr Chase. I'm going to put him at number 3, and I'm going to draw the linebacker on him so I can create a better matchup, right? So there's a great deal of value to being simple in formations, but you're giving up some of that versatility, which is very useful against Cover One teams. So the first one I am drawing on the board is just trying to create formational matchups. So that I can shake free. Like the idea of running a little pivot route is not groundbreaking. The idea of taking Ja'Marr Chase and running a pivot route against their Mike because I'm 3-by-1, that is a much more appealing option than just running go routes to my best receiver all the time, which is like a 30% completion, even if that dude's good. So that's kind of point 1 is matchups.
Yeah, what we did last year was we had a kid that could run catch. He was one of the best, probably arguably the best player in the league. When we go 3-by-1 with nub tight end, sometimes we put him at tight end, but a lot of times we put him at actually number 2, and our best play out of it was slot fade. So because they were bumping out the outside linebacker, corner was on 1, outside linebacker bump out on 2, who was our best kid by far. Good size, kid was a monster. But
Right.
And then he was bringing the safety over. They were double covering. Then we were getting a lighter box with that, and then he was just making plays on the outside. When you run that slot fade, he's fading out. That DB's backs to the ball and they can never track the ball, even if they're in good coverage. So like just doing that made the defense either switch around or bump people out. So I think just utilizing your personnel, and that was something I did more so this year, that really helped us. So to your point, that made me think of that, and I'm like, that was big for us. Just putting him not wasting him at number 1, running a vertical or a slant. Like we're just put him inside, and he go in, he go out, he go vertical. Did you pull some players out? Then we'll just run our buck, So it was nice.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's exactly it. We want to find more advantageous matchups, which means we might have to invest a little bit more in just formations and personnel packages. That's an important approach to take from it. So I don't need to put anything on the board for that, but that's just the first prism. And eventually these things all kind of get combined. So I'm just going to put over here on the right, the first prism that we're thinking here is matchups, right? That's our first point of view. I don't know if we can see that on the screen yet. Okay, so we got matchups, okay? The second thing that I'm looking for when it comes to attacking cover one is leverage, right? And what I mean by leverage is that defenders have a specific leverage that they're supposed to play against, or they're supposed to take away, and we should be able to attack that. So if I'm drawing up just kind of the simplistic cover one components right here, right? So if I've got that guy here, and I've got a corner playing off, generally speaking in cover one, that corner is going to take inside leverage because he does not want to give a clean passing avenue for the quarterback. He's trying to take away the passing lane, right? Just like basketball, we're taking away the passing lane. So if we run slant, his job is to head that thing off. He's going to take our inside hip. He might be up closer and jamming us from the inside, but he's taking inside leverage, which means if I can attack his leverage and then play opposite, I'm creating a much higher percentage completion. So if I run slant and go, I've attacked his leverage and now I'm working away from him. That also goes to the earlier point on slot fade. Slot fade has become a huge play in recent years because if a player is going to play from inside leverage, and that's going to give us a lot of space to the sideline because it's a slot player, the slot fade becomes a very difficult cover because we're working away from the defender's leverage, right? Attack his leverage and work away from. Now, if the defender is giving us leverage, we don't want to run to grass immediately. You have to attack his leverage first and then work away from, which is why we said slant and then go, not just fade. Because that's the technique he's being taught, right? If we are looking to, let me draw it on this side now so I can get a new fresh piece of board. If we are going to just try to run fade, his technique is taught to get in the hip, and that's what he's supposed to go with. But if we can make him fight to hold his leverage and then work off of it, we have a much better opportunity at creating spacing and better timing for the quarterback. So we want to work to leverage. Now, there is one guy on defense or on offense that always has the best leverage for slightly different reasons than what we're drawing up here. And the guy is the running back. The running back always has leverage. And why? Because the running back's got like an 8 to 10 yard space before he gets covered, right? He's 5 yards back. He's not getting pressed at the line of scrimmage. There's already traffic in the middle, which we'll get to in a minute, right? But that linebacker's got 8 or 10 yards before he can actually begin truly covering his guy. He's got to play with an 8 or 10 yard cushion. If you think about going to play, catch with your friends, and let's say there's 3 of you, quarterback, DB, and receiver, and you guys are going to run one-on-ones, you would never see the one-on-one corner start 10 yards off. Because that's a really difficult position to play man coverage from. You can set up any move you want, right? You can go inside, check outside. You can go outside, check inside. You can double move them. You can just run clean inside. Well, that's the advantage that the running back has here. And you see it all the time in the NFL. I don't know if you guys, for anyone who watches any Patriots football, I don't watch a ton of Patriots football, but, if you think back to, 10, 15 years ago, they've always had a running back who was considered a third down back, Kevin Falk. At some points it was a Rex Burkhead, but a guy who would have like 4 carries for 7 yards and then 1 catch for 3 yards. And all of a sudden he'd go off for 12 catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. What's happening is they're catching them in man coverage and they're attacking it over and over and over because the back's got better leverage. At least some of the time that's what's happening, right? So if this team is going to try to play man with the back, well, just that little angle route becomes a really difficult cover because that could have been a scout route. The backer's got to work outside of it. I've set his leverage, and now I'm going to work back in off of it. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not a hard thing to do. That's a route that we're going to complete 90% of the time if we practice it reasonably, right? And none of what we've drawn up here on the board takes very long. These are all reasonably easy completions. So I'm kind of heading off a question that I know is always, I know whenever I post on Instagram, I always get the same question from everyone. How are you going to protect that? Yeah. My snarky answer in my head is like, well, the same way I was going to block when I ran the damn ball too. I planned on coaching my team on how to block. But aside from the snarky response, these are all reasonably easy completions. These are not long developing things. Throwing the Texas route, the angle route, that's a one-hitch throw. Quarterback takes a 3-step drop, 1 hitch, ball comes out. Throwing the sluggo, it's pump and go. Throwing the slot fade could even be a rhythm throw. These are not long developing throws. So just using leverage, we're now talking more so about play design and route design specifically. It's a little bit more technical, but leverage is the second prism through which we're going to look beating man coverage. Now is when we're going to get a little bit more interesting with it. The third thing, and I'm sure the one that everyone is most familiar with, is traffic, right? We want to create traffic that defenders have to run through. So let me just reset my board here so we have a little bit of space. Traffic is great because we can force guys in man coverage to run through other people, and there's no one left to pick up because it's not a zone coverage, right? If we set a pick on someone, he's running to a different zone, it doesn't help you. But if we're setting a pick here, and there's no one else out there, then we got a lot of space, right? So I'll just give a real basic one to get us started here. If we're thinking about running through traffic, right, and we got man coverage right here, well, if he runs a slant and he runs a short out, and we teach the slant to run through the backer's inside hip, we make him create a very easy completion. This is obviously a very basic elementary example, but I think it's a pretty easy way to get started on just setting picks and rubs and stuff, right? Let's say you love the dragon concept, which is that slant with the out. Well, we teach our receivers that in man coverage, when it's dragon, if you're the slant, run through the linebacker, right? Run through his inside hip. Now, when we set this pick with one guy, we're really setting a pick with two guys because the corner's got to follow him. Yep. So realistically, it's a two-man surface that the linebacker has to run over to get to his guy, right? Anytime we set a pick with one, we're really setting a pick with two in man coverage, right? That's kind of the thought. Now, we can get through more complex variations of traffic when we go back to our thought on formation versatility and when we add in leverage and matchups, right? So if we kind of put all these three things together, we want to create a matchup. Who do we think has the best matchup? Well, let's say we think it's the running back, right? The running back's got the best matchup. He's drawing a Mike linebacker or something. Everyone else has got a DB. Then let's go bunch here, right? And now we're going to run the back to the flat. So we've got traffic through against matchups, right? So we think the running back would beat the linebacker anyway. Now let's release this on, let's say, like an advanced mesh concept. Let's run him on a vertical, and then he's going to run the in. Let's run him on the shallow, and then let's run him on the corner over the top. So we've actually created 6 players that linebacker is going to have to run through in order to get to that player, right? So we've created a lot of traffic. This is a very easy completion for the quarterback. Throwing the ball to the back, a lot of youth programs don't do it enough because they think the back needs to be in protection. But a lot of times the back is your best receiving tool for a couple of reasons. One, because he's, like we said, he's always got leverage. He's always got matchup. Mm-hmm. 2, simply because he's probably your best player, right? Most youth programs are going to put their best athlete at running back at least part of the time.
Yeah.
You want to throw the ball to that dude, right? You don't want to use him. You don't want to lose him as a blocker. So just keep throwing him the ball. Feed the back. In the pass game as well, that's really important.
And that's a great concept too, because even if that linebacker navigates through that mess, he's still got to make a tackle in space. Really,
Yeah.
It is like you said, he's gonna really have to belly around all that, and even if he's in good position, he's still got to tackle our best kid in space. So on the youth football level, man, this is stuff I need to do more of too, is utilizing our backs in the pass game. For the reason you said teams don't, that's why we don't. So, and then looking at this, I'm like, we definitely don't do that enough either.
Maybe you want to make this even better.
Even just playing them out relative.
Well, right now we've got the matchup we want, which is great, and we've got traffic. We don't necessarily have leverage, right? The linebacker might be wide enough that he's outside. We still like to play, but we haven't introduced leverage. If we want to introduce leverage, what if we put the back on the other side, which means he might be man from the other linebacker, and then ran him across? Right, and now the quarterback sprint out this way, and we're just bringing it down to the flat. Well, now we got great leverage, great matchup, and assuming the linebackers aren't going to banjo this, where this guy chases it instead of that guy, which that's an NFL thing. I don't know how many youth football teams.
Highly unlikely, in my
linebackers.
opinion.
Even in high school, that's fairly unusual to be able to banjo the back with the linebacker.
Very unlikely.
Running him all the way across, right? If we put the back on the other side, well, now we're drawing the far linebacker who's got to work through 6 potential picks, because we got DBs and receivers, and against the guy that he's probably not as fast as in the first place. If this is your best player, and that's an interior linebacker, he's probably not as fast as that kid in the first place. And maybe they're putting their starting running back at Will Backer too. Well, that's part of the game plan. Okay, well if the starting running back is playing Will Backer, well then put the running back here and draw the mic, right? Or vice versa. If they're putting their best player here and you don't want him covering the back, well put the back over there and put that guy on him, and now run him out that way. Right? So that's the third prism. We want matchups where we can get them using formation versatility when we can. We want to run routes that attack or make it difficult for the defense to maintain their leverage, attack their leverage, and then work to grass. okay? We want to create traffic, and again, this is just an example. I'm sure everyone's familiar with them. I can put up more in a little bit if we want to, and you know, Coach Jeff says that we want to do. But I just want to go through the fourth prism real quick, which is action. Okay, and in some ways, action just means conflict. And what I mean by action is that a defender in man coverage is supposed to key his man. However, he does have potential other responsibilities, and as much as he's supposed to only key his guy, it's not difficult to try to influence them just using human nature. If I send action at a guy in man coverage, it becomes very difficult for them to not think about a potential secondary responsibility. So let me draw one up here. In this case, action is going to mean jet. I'm going to run jet that way, or at least the motion. I'm not going to give the ball to the jet guy, but I'm going to go jet that way. I have a guy in man coverage on that player right there, right? If I send action going this way, in this case, fake jet, I'm going to make the back arc. I'm going to make this guy think he potentially has to make a tackle. And I only need him to believe it for a second. That's all I need, okay? If I can send that jet action and he takes even a step wide, I've created a window for this guy, right? So what if I now run the play where he's going to come underneath and now he's going to pop out the other side, right? That is a very difficult cover for this player for a couple of reasons, right? In part because of the action, in part because if I stick my best receiver here, and that's a linebacker, I've got the matchup I want, in part because by influencing him with this action, I've given myself leverage, right? I've been able to introduce a couple of these concepts. So now we're going to run wave, which is double post combined with Yankee, right? So we got double post coming from here. We've got the deep crosser coming from there. And all I'm going to do is just read the backside corner. If he is low, like it is truly man coverage, I'm reading from there to there, right? I'm expecting this to come open because I'm going to win this route. This is a tough cover in man coverage in general. Those deep overs and crossers are long travels, runaway routes, as we call them. You know, now we've added an action component into it, and that guy with even a second's hesitation is going to be toast. Especially if I can get this guy to just fake wide for a second, just run at him fake wide and then go all the way across. And if the free safety's in the middle of the field, there's no one covering that back third because it's man coverage, like we talked about. If we can shake free of a guy in man coverage, they're kind of hosed, right? Now, this action doesn't have to be jet. It could just be play action. Like if I have a tight end here and a pistol back there and I go this way, well, the guy who's man on the tight end, he might say, I'm a run player now. Block, 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 leak. I didn't draw up a great variation of leak. Really, leak should have gone the other way where it's fake, 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 and then pop out or something. But we see the idea here, right? Where if we can show run, influence that guy into one of his other secondary responsibilities, even if he's reading through his man, and now release that player, well, now we got a big shot play, right? So now what we want to do when we're drawing up man coverage plays is see how many of these four things can we combine. Have we created a matchup? Are we playing to leverage, right? Do we have a traffic component to it? And do we have a action component to it? If we can get 2 or 3 of those into one play, we've probably got a pretty good man play, right? I mean, if we want to introduce all of them, we could have matchups. So let's say we have a slot receiver here and a linebacker, leverage. So we're going to make him really tight so that the backer has got to play outside leverage. We're going to send an action at him of some sort, right? And then I'm going to run mesh with that guy being the over, and now this guy is going to pop out the other side, right? So I can go play action mesh from a matchup in an alignment that gives me leverage, and now I'm getting a guy who's potentially going to be wide open.
Our best pass play for the last 8 years has been post wheel, and that's basically it's your basic shotgun wing T formation with our slot and then our split end compress because he would crack. We go a lot of tackle over and run jet, but we compress our split end down. He'd crack. Our slot would arc. So what we would do is the outside linebacker. We see man coverage. It's like 90% of the time. So once we see that outside linebacker triggering up to the jet sweep, we know we have the wheel to the slot. It's almost always wide open. And teams that scout us, too, and here's another man-to-man issue, is teams that scout us, one team would pass the post to the safety and sit on the wheel, kind of play like a cover 3 or kind of switch their man, which was great, but then they didn't have anyone to account for the jet motion player running full speed across and just swinging out. So like there's a lot of variations with the action, and to stop jet sweep, you really need your outside backer to trigger up, right? So and if it's a rundown in distance, 1st and 10, 2nd and short, it's the eye discipline of these kids on the youth level is like non-existent. You're playing man, you gotta lock on your guy, you know? And if they don't,
Yeah.
that's when you just take advantage of it.
Well, you mentioned the post wheel there. This has become a very popular concept at a lot of levels of football. We're going to go jet and run that guy across. We're not handing the ball to him. We are going to go stutter, 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 like we're going to arc, and then he's going to run a wheel. He's going to inside release on the post, and then we're going to bring the tight end across like that.
Right.
And now some teams will include the back end of the concept. I'm going to make them block to the front side edge.
He's replaces our slot usually.
Right, and then now he can step back and peel to the backside. We're going to go fake jet and then set a little bit over to the right. And now what we're seeing is, can we influence this guy down and hit the wheel? Because now the corner's going to leave it. From the backside, do these guys bump? Because if they bump and the nickel goes inside and the corner comes in, well, now he's got a tough cover on the tight end. If they don't bump and the corner tries to run with it, well, now the nickel's got to step down outside because he's the force player in the run game, which makes that very difficult, right? Does this guy follow all the way across so he can't get to the jet? There's any slew of issues. Now, this play will be run NFL, college, every high school. This is something that's been very popular, in recent years. Now, the other variation that I like, if you're more of a wing T stuff, there was one formation that I loved a couple of years ago that I think we probably ran 5 or 8 times a game, and we probably averaged about 15 yards of play out of it. And this was not youth football, but I think still applies very readily. So what we would do is we would take the tight end and put him a full gap over, and we would take another player, in this case our X receiver, and make him the wing inside. NFL teams that started doing this, I'm very proud to say that we actually did this before any NFL teams did. We were doing this back in like 2015, which was fantastic because defenses didn't know how to adjust to it. And now we would do something similar, or we would go jet, make it look like jet. We would down block, and he would normally arc on the jet. But now instead of handing it to the jet, we would fake to the jet, fake to the inside zone. So the quarterback is opening, and then dropping straight back here. This would turn into, we had a couple different things we could do. We could turn into a drive concept and then put him out there. We could turn it into post wheel, right? We also turned it into a corner route sometimes and had him come out there. And then we had the tight end, after he blocked, he would release down the field. So like we had a couple, and then we would send him down to the flat. We had a couple of different things we would do out of it. But again, it goes back to, we have action, we have traffic, we have matchup, right? And then depending on how a defense is going to align to this, we may have leverage as well. Now this, to me, would relate to a wing T pretty well.
No,
if you take the tight end and the wing, who you're probably calling like a Z or something, or your flanker, if you're using old school terms, take them and switch them. So the tight end is a full gap out, and now the flanker is the guy inside, but off the line. What's the defense going to put the corner on the tight end? They're going to put the linebacker on the Z, and now they got to switch the run gap.
Yeah.
Where now the corner is playing inside on the X or the Z. It creates problems, but that's why I think formation versatility really feeds a lot of what we're trying to do through these 4 prisms. Being able to manipulate defensive matchups in cover 1 and alignments, leverage, allow you to create traffic on players who aren't in positions they're north. If they're going to stick the corner inside here over the X because they want to keep that matchup, that's a real problem for them in the run game, right? If they're going to put the corner on the tight end and put the linebacker here, well, okay, now let's really mess with them. Let's go zone going this way, make it look like split zone with the X coming across, and now the X is in the flat, and the quarterback's going to boot, and we're going to bring the ball to the X because it's man coverage. And that guy was in a run gap now, so he's filling on the run. We've been able to combine 3 or 4 of those components.
Right.
I think that's kind of a crucial component to creating completion. Again, this is a play action boot where we feel like we can protect. We're making the defense chase the running back first, and we should be able to be clean getting out on the boot, especially if we have the naked portion where the end has either got to squeeze inside of that, or if he comes up the field, the quarterback can just pull up and throw the ball out to the flat there. We've had quick completions. Now, the one where I showed the jet and the deep crossers, that one's not a quick developing one. That one you do have to protect. But like I said earlier, I know protection is an issue for a lot of teams. you just got to teach it like anything else. Like that's kind of like saying, well, how do you expect to run counter? You got to block those guys. Yeah, we got to effing block them. Like that's the whole game. That's what we're doing. So
Yeah.
if you're concerned about your pass protection, then go teach your pass protection. This is the honest answer for me to be.
And creating action, play action pass help with pass protection. Not passing on a passing down and distance helps. Or let me switch that around. Passing on a run down and distance.
Yep.
1st and 10, we run a frick ton of jet sweep. We come back second quarter or something, we do play action off of it. It helps. They're playing run, we get more time. Using motions will draw eyes. Defensive, when you put a kid in motion on the youth level and you see a kid go in motion, I want you to listen to the opposing defense, their coaches, and their damn parents. Everyone's yelling motion, motion, motion. It's crazy. And that all that does is take all these kids' eyes. Even D linemen's supposed to watch the ball because these are kids, 12-year-old kids. They're looking and peeking for motion. So just doing things like that will slow down their rush. And
What's a good note for parents there is that I think one of the things, I'll be a little bit blunt, I think parents need to learn to keep their mouths shut on the sideline sometimes. There's a great little meme post that I've seen, and it's a quote of a girl who's yelling at her mother, and she's like, "No, careful, you're gonna burn the eggs. You gotta flip them. They're getting brown on the edge. Get the other spatula. It's flatter." The mom eventually turns around after 2 minutes of this chatter and says, "Shut up! I know how to cook eggs." And the daughter goes, "Well, now you know how I feel when you yell at me in my basketball games."
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I need to go find that one, but I think it would be good if parents just rooted their team on instead of trying to yell advice from the sideline, because all it does is muddy the picture for the kids who are already trying to think about what they see.
Yeah.
So, separate topic, but I think it was relevant given.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I can't express how motion is so underrated and underutilized on youth football level. It really is. We do so much motion. It doesn't tire our kids out. We don't motion every play. We're not running jet motion every play to the same kid, but it just draws eyes, man. And these concepts you're drawing up is the reason why I play zone, man. It's hard to play man. We're a cover 3 defense. That's what it is. We don't care if we know or not. We try to be really good. We work on a couple things that we struggle with, like the hitches, the seams, 4 verts, obviously. Sending 4 deep and we only have 3. But you split the difference. You could show, because we play cover 1 2 a lot. Well, not as much, but cover 3. But we mix in cover 1, so we'll show 1 and play 3. So that kind of takes away the hitch. Hitches freaking kill us every year. Or now screens the number 1 receiver. All play action they throw, and that was killing our cover 3. So it was like our answer for that was just showing our cover 1 look, and that took away the pre-snap call out. So we would take away the hitch without even covering it and then bailing back, because there was no guarantee we were in our cover 3 too. So, but it's hard to play man, and the biggest thing is creating the matchups, putting the X inside there. That'd be a problem as a defensive coordinator. I actually coordinate the defense on the team I coach, but that would be a problem. So I think everything you said, matchups, leverage, traffic, and action. If you do that, man, you should shred it on the youth level.
I think you can, 100%. I think I mean, we've had a lot of success with this at the college level. Again, my previous coaching job was as a college offensive coordinator when we had a game plan for teams that majored in man coverage. It starts there. Not to toot our home, we were the number 1 offense in our conference. We were, whether you want to measure it by efficiency or gross totals and stuff, we were beating teams up. I think for the man components, it was this. The issue was always, how do we create high percentage easy completions?
Yeah.
It became such a point of emphasis after 1 year where we had a game where we didn't create as many easy completions as we had hoped. It became such a point of emphasis that over the next 2.5 seasons, it really was something that was harped on, at all times. 3rd and short was obviously a man situation for teams that we would play against, where defense is a little bit more diverse, and cover 1 is perhaps not their base, but they play it situationally. Is okay. What's our 3rd down package? Well, what's our man package? How do we, and then you got to have your checks for it. Okay, if they're in man, we're running this. If they're in 3, we're checking that. And stuff. There was definitely a large component of how do we function against man coverage effectively. And not allow a team to smother you. And there were times when we struggled against man teams, and we look back at the game plan, we're like, we didn't At least now when I look back at it, I'm like, I missed on some of those. You know, that wasn't as good a game plan, not as high percentage of game plan. It's so tempting to be like, all right, we're gonna throw fade 12 times, and we're gonna hope we complete 4 of them for touchdowns, because it's so tempting to want to do that, and it's just not a good game plan. It's just a low percentage completion, and it's not even that. Like if you hit 2 of them, yeah, you just picked up 50 yards, but you also just put yourself in 2nd and 10 on the other 10 situations in which you ran that play, and you just killed 10 drives.
Right.
I'm being a little bit dramatic, but not that dramatic, to be honest. So
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think this is really great. You know, I definitely, after hearing this, I want to create more traffic. Maybe, you know, bunch some things up here. You know, utilize our formations that way. Because when we do spread the field, we're really spreading the field horizontally. We don't have any bunch stuff, and we could just bunch right and just swing the back out even too, like you know. And
I
so
mean, if you really
there's
want
a
to break down
lot you know you
condensed
can
stuff,
do.
if you really want to break down the condensed stuff, the guy to go watch is Sean McVay with the Rams. You know, he does that better than anyone. You know, he brings that 11 personnel and brings that X in there and says, hey, guess what, Cooper Kupp, I'm going to make you block that goddamn defensive end. And Cooper Kupp, you know, for the last however many years, did block that defensive end, but it meant that when they went play action off of it, the defense had to cover Cooper Kupp somehow.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's where Cooper Kupp comes up with 156 catches or whatever he had that one season. It's not because he's innately faster than everyone or he's got incredible jump ball skills. The big part of it was he was willing to do the dirty work from alignments like this, which meant when they ran play action and leaked him out the other side, he's just catching 5-yard dinks and dunks all the time, and he's drawing matchups, right? And there we're a guy who, again, Cooper Kupp's a phenomenal route runner, and he's got a great sense of space, but he's not like he's going to win a whole bunch of jump 50-50s. He's not going to beat corners straight down the field on fade balls. That's not what he does. He did it from these alignments. You know, he's catching a huge percentage of his passes lined up somewhere other than there.
Right. Yep.
He doesn't just line up as a perimeter receiver and go play. He's moving across the formation, and in the NFL, where any short yardage situation is going to turn into man coverage, he's dominating those situations, right? And it's because formationally, the Rams have learned to play from cut splits and condensed offenses. And it's not a heavy install, to be honest. Like if you're normally a 2x2, 10 personnel team and your splits or whatever, let's say you call that duo, call it duo cut. Now your guys are inside. Now we're all nasty splits. And, you know, how do you run smash from that? How do you run mesh from that? How do you run boot from that? How do you run, you know, traffic
Right.
from that? And now guys have opportunities. And it's a 10-second lesson for the kids. Hey, when I say cut, I want the outside receivers 2 yards from the tackle. I want the inside receivers 1 yard from the tackle. Whatever. That was bad numbers. 1 yard and just outside of that, right? We're going to cut you guys down in splits. And then, you know, okay, what's our base package? How do we run it from condensed? Well, we're a counter team, so how do we run counter from condensed? We're an inside zone team. How do we run our inside zone from condensed? Okay, well, let's do that now. Let's run inside zone from condensed. So we have this. These are now 2 receivers. We're running inside zone going this way, but now we're going to block out here, and he's going to run bubble. Now we're running RPO from condensed, same as we would have from spread, but we've got better angles, and if we can get a hook on the corner, look at all that green grass we have now. You know, so it's all readily available.
Oh. Yeah, that's good stuff. Like you said, if coaches think of it, you know, through those 4 ways, matchups, leverage, traffic, action, you know, you'll create some good plays. You know, youth football is all man to man. Most teams play man to man, so you need man to man beaters. You know, and then you know you're gonna get man on the goal line too. Like you know, we're not playing cover 3. We're inside our 10-yard line very much. So like either way, you're gonna need man coverage beaters, even if you're playing teams that play in zone. So yeah, it's good stuff, Coach.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Always good to chat. I'm always happy to chat to anyone about football, and hopefully this is helpful to some folks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Coach. Thanks.
You got it.